bike to work.
Sean, let's kick the tires and light the fires. We're getting on the road bike again, but this time one of the longest distances we've covered, but we're mixing it with some high-volume gymnastics between the toes to bar and chest to bar pull-ups.
Recipe for success presented by Trifecta.
Listen, Reese Bobby once told me you got to ride with the fear. When you're on the bike, you got to be free-flowing. You just got to be with it, not paralyzed by it. High risk, high reward, and it's all going to come down to those first 75 toes to bar to see if you can get to your bike first.
Hopefully there won't be any cougars riding alongside those athletes on those bikes. Mike Arsenault is down on the course that these athletes will be riding, and there are plenty of good seats regardless of where you are here at the Alliant Energy Center. Mike?
That's right, Sean. Great to be back in Madison. And what other sports world championships can you roll out of bed, step out your front door, and have a front row seat to the competition? That's what hundreds of fans in the RV campground will be experiencing momentarily here in event number 1. For the first time in CrossFit Games history, athletes will be competing through the middle of the campground on this gravel road. They'll be biking beside me, and with the athletes jockeying for position, the slick conditions, plus hundreds of screaming fans, it could be an explosive start to event number 1, and I, for one, cannot wait.
Thank you, Mike. All 40 women will be on the field for this opening event, and they will start in their lanes, but it is going to be a free-for-all as they move through this event as far as the rig is concerned. Turi Helgadottir is in lane number 8. She's one of the 2 women in this field who competed at the 2012 CrossFit Games. Cara Saunders, she's the other one. She will be in lane 15, and the only woman who's gotten close to beating Tia Toomey during her 5-year title run. She only lost to Tia by 2 points back in 2017. Laura Horvath in lane number 21 finished second to Tia Toomey last year. And then Emily Rolfe in lane number 38 has won a couple of events here at the Games, both of them on the longer side of things. But Tia Toomey going for her 6th consecutive CrossFit Games championship.
Just an unprecedented path she's been on for the last 5 years, and that's to go with the 2 second-place finishes she had to start her career, and she always has a great start in the beginning in event number 1.
Stand by.
The 2022 Noble CrossFit Games are underway. The athletes sprinting to the rig where they will complete 75 toes to bar. There will be 4 women per lane to start this thing out. After this, they will exit the stadium and they will ride 5 loops of a 1-mile course, 5 miles total. Then when they get back in, choose any bar that you want. I know you talked to a lot of coaches leading up to this event. You're going to see a variety of strategies employed by these athletes.
It's wild to see the strategies a lot of these coaches has been talking about their athletes. I've heard big sets of as much as 30 to 40 to as small as 5 to 10, and it's all about navigating these 75 to get off the rig as fast as you can. The problem is that you're going to have some athletes out here just crushing. Look at the center lane we have. Haley Adams, Laura Horvath, Mal O'Brien, Danielle Brandon, Tia Toomey. The center of this rig in lane number 5 is absolutely stacked. But the important thing to understand is that you have to get off the toes to bar as fast as you can, because once you get to the bike, there is not a lot of room for passing and moving. It may be 2 to 3 athletes wide, so getting clear of the field after these 75 is a massive, massive priority for all athletes on the rig.
And most of them are already more than halfway through the set of 75. Matilda Garns right now the farthest through that set of 75. She has 49 done and counting. She's on her 50th rep now. Ariel Lowen, Emily Rolfe, Mal O'Brien, your top 4 right now.
Now, Matilda Garns, one of her big strengths is high-volume gymnastics, and a lot of these athletes were vetted with some high-volume pulling. When you look at the legless event, that was the same across all semifinals. So if you were successful there, you definitely have some good high-volume pulling endurance, but that is a huge strength for Matilda Garns, so no surprise to see that so far.
Tia Toomey, Haley Adams, Emily Rolfe, Rebecca Fuselier are in their final 15 reps here. Take a look at Haley Adams.
Haley Adams got 3rd last year in event number 10 that had the 3 sets of 30 toes to bar mixed with a 1.5-mile run between. Emily Rolfe actually won that event last year in event number 10, so no surprise to see those athletes navigating this well. And Haley Adams, look at that, just a handful of reps to go. This is huge for Haley.
Adams and Toomey now both off. Matilda Garnes was the first woman done with her 75 toes to bar. Got those done in 2 minutes, 18 seconds. Now the athletes have to run their bikes out to the road. As soon as they're on the road, they can hop on the bikes. And as you mentioned, very key to get out front here early. There's not a lot of room on this course.
Exactly. Look how narrow that entrance is. And now once they get to the road, they can go. But you're going to see is a lot of athletes are going to get jammed up underneath the bleachers there at North Park. You can already see the backlog in the back.
Tia Toomey is out front to start this first 1 mile. Then we got a wreck in the back. Not sure who that was who fell off her bike, but that caused a little bit of a log jam, as now just about every athlete is done with those 75 toes to bar, and some of them are struggling to get on the bike here. Tia Toomey out front early, 5 mile loop, so 5 laps.
5 laps, 5 miles. Now this is the only portion they'll have a lot of clean racing. So on the first lap, get on your bike, get on it clean, and just get out ahead of the pack and start to settle into what gear you're comfortable with. These gears have 10, or these bikes have 10 different gears, but now we hit the gravel patch. For this, it's slightly uphill, very loose gravel pit. You want to be in a higher gear, which means you're going to get more distance per pedal stroke and more control of the bike itself.
Laura Horvath, you saw her move ahead of Tia Toomey here on this first of 5 laps, and Horvath starting to open up a bit of a lead. We were talking to Adrian Bosman, competition director for CrossFit, earlier today, and he said that Laura smashed the bike portion of this during practice, looked really proficient during this part of the event.
All athletes got to ride a practice mile lap and get a feel for the course, and Boss had said Laura had a 20-second difference between her and the rest of the field. Now on this backside of the dog park, it's slightly uphill the entire way, but at the top, it's really the last time they'll be climbing at one large chunk on this course.
Emily Rolfe has now moved alongside Tia Toomey. Haley Adams behind them as Laura Horvath leads.
Now, a few things you want to do is, we said ride with the fear. Not a lot of athletes have a whole lot of practice on road bikes, especially off-road courses. They're mostly used to fixed bikes, assault bikes, Concept 2 bikes, Echo bikes, things of that nature that you have in your affiliate. Usually if they're doing any type of biking, you'll probably see something more along road bikes or something we've seen like in the crit in 2018, since it's been a while since we've been on these road bikes. And when you say about being comfortable, there's a few things you want to look for. These bent arms you see with Tia Toomey, Emily Rolfe, Haley Adams, that's a good sign that they're comfortable on the bike. What you don't want to see is athletes locked up in the arms and being a lot under tension during the ride.
Laura Horvath leading as she heads back into the stadium to close out the first of 5 laps.
Now this big straightaway, I think this is a great opportunity to pick up a little speed. It's flat. It's actually slightly downhill on the backside of this stretch. Last year we saw the athletes take this on that 500-meter sprint. I think this is the second event of the weekend. But this is where you can pick up a lot of speed and separate yourself from the field, especially because of that blind turn. A lot of times you'll see athletes in clusters on races, whether it's long distance running or long distance biking, is you want to make moves on blind turns and maybe separate yourself a little bit more from the athletes behind you just by being a little bit further away, try to stifle their desire to want to chase you down.
Laura Horvath is widening her lead here on this first 5-mile loop. This is the second of 5 laps the athletes will make. Emily Rolfe sits in second, ahead of Tia Toomey, Haley Adams, and Matilda Garnes in the back in the black top, rounding out the top 5.
Unofficially,
they hit that gravel patch after the first turn off the road. They'll be back on the road, and this is that little hill stretch on grass on the backside of this course. And we're talking to Adrian Bosman about where you really should be pushing, and you see Laura getting out of the saddle. Confident riders are not always just stuck in the seat. Confident riders on off-road terrain, it's almost like a bit of a dance between you, your bike, and the terrain. And what you want to see is a lot of movement and shifting of weight as you navigate this course. Or if you're on turns, you want to shift your weight to the opposite side. If you're going uphill, maybe get out of the saddle a little bit. But you don't want to just see an athlete static and stuck in their seat while they ride to this course.
Horvath has about a 10-second lead right now over the three women immediately behind her. Emily Rolfe, Tia Toomey, and Haley Adams, closing out her second of 5 laps.
This downhill portion, again, I could see athletes taking a little bit of rest. Rolfe, Haley both not pedaling, just letting themselves coast down, give their legs a bit of a break. But Horvath just pumping down these hills. I was talking to Chris Henshaw yesterday, and he felt like there's a huge advantage of really sending the downhill part. A lot of people will coast and think that's a safe course to take, but Henshaw said, this is your opportunity to really extend your lead. You're going faster. You can get almost some free help as far as the downhill portion and what you can put into the bike itself.
Laura Horvath now finishing up lap number 2 of 5. After this 5-mile loop is complete, it will be 75 chest to bar pull-ups and then a final 5-mile bike ride.
Now, what's really nice here is that it's a field of 40. All 40 athletes going at the same time. So instead of heats and not really knowing, okay, am I pushing too hard relative to the field in the other heats? Are they going to be able to see what I'm doing? What's great for Laura is that she's in the lead. She's in the lead in a field of 40. So now you can really play to the pace of the pack when it comes to a full field event.
Horvath with 4 career event wins here at the CrossFit Games. We've had bikes at the Games dating all the way back to 2012 at Pendleton 1 and 2. Ruth Anderson Horrell won that event back in 2012. Kristen Holta in 2017 and 2018 won cyclocross and the crit. And then Tia Toomey in 2020, when the in-person portion of the CrossFit Games were held in Morgan Hill, California, won the bike repeater event.
Laura Horvath has an uncanny ability to just put so much power into quote-unquote the machines, whether it's static machines like Concept 2, bike, erg, skis, things of that nature, but even just the regular, bikes themselves. It's such a strength for her, but it's because she works on it a lot.
15 seconds for Laura, so increased it by
And again,
5.
there you see, out of the saddle. On the uphills, you want to lower the gear a little bit so your RPMs can speed up, but you can keep that cadence. And a lot of the thing on courses like this is trying to keep the same RPMs or the same revolutions or cadence in your bike. Is that sitting at around 90 the entire time is I would say in an average pace most cyclists will be doing, whether they're on the road or on off terrain. So navigating your gear shifts, right? You want to drop the gears into a bit of lower of the gear on uphill so you can keep your cadence. But once you crest the top of this hill, kick it up, and there's 10 gears on this. Kick it up to the high one and just ride that down this downhill portion, because you're going to go from grass to gravel to the road, and then again another opportunity for you to use that momentum into that turn in a long downhill straightaway to gain some ground on the rest of the field.
Laura Horvath continues to widen her lead. Now Haley Adams has moved into 2nd place. Tia Toomey is in 3rd. Emily Rolfe sits in 4th, and that lead pack is starting to separate itself. Things have really spread out here on this 3rd of 5 laps in this opening 5-mile bike ride.
And it's tough. If you're in the middle, you kind of just get lost in the weeds out there. You don't really see people in front of you. You can't really look behind you so much. So it's on these turns. You saw Haley take a look back, is on the turns, at least those hard 90-degree ones, is really your only opportunity to see where the field is behind you. Look at that downhill on the gravel. Now, this seems counterintuitive to the casual biker, but faster is better. You have more stability on the bike itself when you're moving faster. A lot of times athletes are a bit gun shy, especially gravel, downhill, not a lot of experience on the bike. But the faster you go, the more stable your bike is. See, Murano on the right is that look at the cadence. That she's in a low cadence. That means she's doesn't have a lot of confidence in the bike itself, how fast she's going, but there's not a lot of speed. Laura Horvath. In fact, one thing, look at Laura's hands. Laura's hands are just resting on the handles. Why? Because she has chest to bars coming up. She just sent 75 toes to bar. She's trying to use as little grip in arms as possible. She's sit back more in her seat, putting more weight in the backside of the bike, but letting her hands just rest there, getting set for those chest to bar pull-ups we have coming up.
That's Michelle Marin, who just got lapped by Laura Horvath.
I said Marin is just in that low gear, high cadence. And a lot of that is just comfortability and experience. If you haven't experienced the bike, usually a lighter gear feels better. But as I said earlier, so you have more control in the higher gears, you have more control at higher speeds.
"14-second lead over Haley. 14-second lead over Haley."
Bottom left is Laura Horvath. She is in the lead. Bottom right, Tia Toomey and Emily Rolfe behind her, and it's about a 15-second lead now for Laura Horvath. She's on lap 4 of 5 in this 5-mile bike ride.
I really like the race Horvath is putting together. It's hard to lead from the front. That's the other thing too, Sean, is that it's really hard to just sit out there seeing no one in front of you, where the people behind you get to sit there and just tether to you and pace off you the entire time. They can see if you speed up. They can feel that. They can adjust. You can't. You just have to sit there and hopefully that your pace is enough to maybe keep yourself in the position you are, and not enough where people can just pace off you the entire time. It's a really, really tough thing to lead from the front. The nice thing is that it's laps, right? You don't get full view the entire time, but those 3, 4, 5 athletes behind you, they can sit there and just tether you, right? It's a little fishing line out there, and they can pace themselves based off you. So it's really hard to set the pace all by yourself out there in front.
Approaching the 15-minute mark here of the opening event of the 2022 Noble CrossFit Games. It's a busy day today. 4 events, 500 total points on the line here on Wednesday. A special thank you to the Trek Bicycles and Trek for providing the bikes and helmets that our athletes are using today. Visit trekbikes.com to check out road, mountain, electric, or fitness bikes, including the bikes that the athletes are riding here today. Laura Horvath closing out lap
1, 2, 3.
number 4 of 5. So 1 lap to go before she will head back inside the North Park and then complete 75 chest to bar pull-ups before a final 5-mile bike ride. It's like Haley Adams is now in 2nd place, but it is a wide lead right now for Laura Horvath.
And I think coming in at 75 chest to bar pull-ups, last year in the final event, there was 90 chest to bar pull-ups in the middle of the event that had rowing and then lunging with the barbells. She had the 2nd fastest split of any athlete, any female athlete on the chest to bar pull-up. So Laura Horvath is very well suited, at least on paper, for this event, but there's a much bigger difference between on paper and performance on the field. But just a great setup for Laura Horvath and her skill set.
Haley Adams sits in 2nd place. Tia Toomey is now in 3rd. She has a pack of athletes starting to pile up behind her. Emily Rolfe, Emma Lawson is there, Alexis Raptis, and Matilda Guards all now behind
between Laura
Tia Toomey. So Emma Lawson starting to make a move towards the front here.
Haley and the chase pack.
Fifth and final lap for Laura Horvath, looking for her 5th career event win here at the CrossFit Games.
Pacing wise, you're trying to look at the speed that you'll see in these athletes, is that I think in a range from 15 to 20 miles per hour. You're looking at 3 to 4 minutes a lap if they can keep that pace. So each lap taking somewhere between 15 to 20 minutes in that range times 2. I mean, that time cap of 50 minutes, depending on how well you can navigate those gymnastics, it's not the longest time cap in the world as far as the volume of work that they have in front of them. And again, navigating an off-road course. What's nice about this course relative to 2017 is that the turns aren't as tight. Right, there was a lot of tight turns in 2017 during cyclocross. Here the turns are pretty wide open, so that affords athletes to actually, again, use a faster pace than maybe they're comfortable with. As Horvath is already lapping another athlete in the field.
That's Elena Karatala-Sanahuya, who's now the second athlete that Horvath has lapped. And Laura's going to very soon be making her way back inside the North Park. She's got to get off her bike and she has to run it back into her lane, and then she can go to any pull-up bar that she wants.
Now, one subtle thing Laura did right before the end is she shifted her gears down. Right, so she's been riding in a very, very high gear this entire time because she's had speed. She shifted her gears down so that when she gets back on this bike, it starts at a light gear so she can get that cadence picked up very quickly. It's those little details. You ask, how do you beat Tia-Clair Tooby? Usually the answer is you don't. But if you want an opportunity, you're really just going to have to do the little things right.
An 18-second lead for Laura Horvath. She is onto her chest bar pull-ups. Here comes Haley Adams. Adams is going to get to work right next to Horvath. Laura got her 5-mile bike ride done in just under 16 minutes, 15:58 for that 5-mile loop.
Now in set 1 of the 75 toes to bar, play to your strengths, be slightly conservative before you get to the bike. On these chest to bar pull-ups, Laura Horvath has not stopped since she got on the rig. This is where you can take some chances. I said high risk, high reward. You had to get off the toes bar early to get some clear water. We already saw that mess up a huge pack right there in the beginning because of one athlete falling off their bike. For Laura, you're not coming back to the pull-up bar after this, so you can afford to nearly tap out your grip strength and pulling potential to get back onto that bike.
Haley Adams has pulled even now with Horvath on this set of 75 chest bar pull-ups. The two of them are through 38 and counting. Adams with about a rep lead on Horvath right now. Tia Toomey sits in 3rd. Matilda Garnes is in 4th, followed by Emma Lawson and Alexis Raptis. And Brooke Wells is on her chest bar pull-ups as well, as is Mal O'Brien and Lucy Campbell. So most of the field now back inside the North Park, churning through these 75 chest bar pull-ups.
Laura Horvath, the right side of your screen, taking a big break after that last set. Haley Adams, however, has been very quick on her transitions, but Tia Toomey is ripping off giant sets on the pull-up bar.
Tia Toomey only has 15 remaining. Haley Adams has 16. Emma Lawson, Matilda Garnes, and now Laura Horvath are your top 5 on this portion of the event. But if Laura Horvath gets off the pull-up bar anywhere near any of these athletes, you got to like her chances on the bike.
Absolutely, just what we saw on those first 5 laps and what we heard about her lap test in practice.
You saw the number there for Tia Toomey, has just been dominant, especially these last 3 years. Now, some of that does have to do with the formats and the amount of athletes that she was facing, but she has won 27 events in the last 3 years. There have been 46 total, and now she is done with her chest to bar pull-ups and back to the bike. But Tia Toomey back in 1st place. Here comes Haley Adams in 2nd. Toomey is back onto the bike. They can hop back on as soon as they get to that paved portion.
See that high gear Tia is starting with. Same with Haley Adams. That's what I was talking about with Laura shifting down. The problem is Laura isn't off the rig yet.
Alexis Raptis is now in 3rd. Horvath has now just finished her chest to bar pull-ups. There's Emma Lawson, and here comes Laura Horvath.
There she is. That high cadence to get things started. As she gets her RPMs up, she'll shift her gears down. And the only reason why that is not so much transition time that you're saving, but it's really energy that you're saving right from the start. The legs are probably still a bit pumped up from the first 5 laps. It's a good flush to get back on the bike, that high cycle rep, that high RPM, and then you can use the downhill portion of the straightaway to kick those gears back up to a higher gear.
Tia Toomey was able to make up 45 seconds on those chest to bar pull-ups. Haley Adams right behind her, but on the bike, Laura Horvath, the first 5 miles, she did that in 15:58. Toomey, her time was 16:46. Haley Adams now in front of Toomey on this first of the final 5 laps that they will have to complete.
And that's a push when you look at that time differential of what she gained on the chest bar pull-ups and what she had lost on the previous bike.
Or 20 seconds behind.
Now the challenge here for Haley and Tia is now that they're in front. Now they're the ones being chased. They're the pace setters. And what's different on a road bike, and this sounds obvious, is that if you're used to Concept 2 bikes or Echo bikes, things are the monitor that tells you your RPMs, your cadence, your speed, your cows, your watts. They don't have these. You are purely going by feel. And the only problem is going by feel is if you don't have a familiarity with the bike itself, is that you're just riding blind. You're just hopefully just leaning on your fitness to get you through the speed of this bike at the end.
Haley Adams opening up a lead now on Tia Toomey.
Hey, Tim, do you read me? Well, I'm just...
Tia looking over her shoulder, seeing if anybody's coming out. That's
Laura
what he said.
was 20
This
seconds
turn on the
behind.
backside, this little loop is your best shot to see where you're at. But Haley Adams is just putting a lot of distance on her and Tia. Look, the cycle rate too. We talk about RPMs a lot, and what that matters is the amount of energy that you're putting in your bike. Really high cadence for Haley Adams. Nice, free. She looks loose. She looks comfortable. I mean, look at her face. Just a nice, relaxed position to be in. Tia working a little bit harder. Not necessarily a bad thing, but you can just see the difference between the two in this first lap.
Haley Adams now finishing up her first of 5 laps. Tia Toomey sits in second. We have yet to see Laura Horvath here on her second 5-mile ride, as she was the fastest on the first 5-mile ride. More women getting on the bikes. There's Danielle Brandon, Ellie Turner, and Haley Adams is lapping a large number of athletes right now. Rebecca Fuselier and Turi Helgadottir there. Here comes Tia Toomey. They'll have to navigate through this.
And that's something these, Haley and Tia didn't have to worry about in the first part of this, is now you have to worry about passing other athletes, navigating other athletes in the field of play. And we said this is a narrow track. It's about 2 or 3 athletes wide at best. Where will that matter? Maybe in your last lap or two. Can you outrace the person behind you while weaving your way in and out of athletes? Because now there's going to be bikes scattered all across this course that will play a factor as far as how you navigate your course between the other athletes on the field.
Emma McQuaid and Danielle Brandon behind Haley Adams. They are on their first laps. Adams is on lap number 2 along with Tia Toomey now on the left side of your screen.
Tia still in that high cadence, or that high gear. See, her cadence is a bit slower than Haley. And just looks different. Look at the difference between Haley's face. It's usually a great way to see how relaxed athletes are. Her arms are bent. She's not over the handlebar too much. She's sitting back in the saddle. That means her weight distribution is where it needs to be for this off-road biking specifically.
Haley Adams in her 3 years as an individual competitor here at the games has never finished lower than 6th.
Great first event for Haley's skill set, especially. Long endurance, machine work, high volume gymnastics. classic opening test. You see at the CrossFit Games, something a bit outside the box relative to maybe your affiliate yourself outside the box and outside the box of just normal training that you would do. Just when you think about classic CrossFit training methodology, but that's the CrossFit Games. The first event is always something a little bit outside your skis. Curious to see all the other things we'll have over the weekend, obviously with Adrian Bosman taking over the programming this year.
Haley Adams taking a look over her left shoulder, and she has a really solid lead. That is Ellie Turner, who's on her first lap. Tia Toomey coming into view. She sits in second place.
I was talking to Chris Henshaw, and we were talking about really how to navigate your pacing throughout this, how to separate yourself from other athletes. And a lot of endurance athletes see when you ride in like groups, or you run in groups or ride in pelotons, so to speak, as far as trying to separate yourself from other athletes. And there's always this tethered effect if you're close to someone that you can use to pace off of. We saw Haley do that with Laura Horvath on the first 5 laps. But to see this blind turn that Haley just took, there's another one here. This is a great opportunity to do what they call breaking the elastic. And that's that confidence tether to the athlete that you're chasing. But if Laura or Tia turns the corner and Haley just starts pedaling down harder and extends the lead, you can do what is basically breaking the elastic. That psychological tie between you and two athletes. If I turn the corner and I've been chasing you and you've already put 10 more meters on me, I may just lose all interest in trying to stay with you. And that's a big thing for Haley on all these blind turns. This is where she should be, just hammering down. Blind turn, hammer down, get up this hill as fast as I can. Put a little bit more distance between those chasing me in hopes that I can just break their spirit of trying to run me down.
Haley Adams on lap number 3 of 5.
And I think Haley found the perfect gear just to keep that cycle cadence just nice and quick. Light pedal strokes. I mean, look at Karin Frey over behind her. Look how that's a slow pace. She's putting a lot of effort into each pedal stroke, where Haley is just, again, that nice churning rhythmic cycle.
Let's send it down to Nikki Brazier with more on Haley Adams.
You know, I had a chance to catch up with Chris Henshaw, and he said that paying attention to her legs is not the only thing that shows that she's very relaxed out there right now. Her arms are also very relaxed, and that says that she has zero tension in her upper body, which means that this intensity level is not incredibly labored for her.
Almost through 31 minutes here. Haley Adams continues to lead. It's Tia Toomey in second, followed by Emma Lawson in third. It's the third of 5 laps for those 3 women. Toomey and Lawson.
And Lawson's just chilling. And for Lawson, this is a savvy move for a rookie athlete here on her individual debut. Obviously, she was a fantastic team competitor, but she's just sitting on the heel, sitting on that back wheel of Tia, just letting Tia do the work. I mean, you look at Emma's, she's barely pushing on the pedals. And this is a really big advantage. Drafting is a thing, even in cycling, like we saw in swimming last year, or any other implement like this, is that if you can get on the back wheel, you can do, the percentage is very low, but the amount of work you have to do, you almost have to worry more about riding up into their back wheel. That's how much of a pull you get from this front athlete. So Emma Lawson just chilling on that back wheel is a veteran move for a rookie debut.
She finished first in the 16 to 17-year-old division in 2021, and then in 2019 she was third in the 14 to 15-year-old division.
I mean, look at the difference, Sean. Look at Tia Toomey. Look how hard she's working right there. Look at Emma Lawson behind her. She has to slow her cadence down a bit just so she doesn't run into the back wheel. Just absolutely chilling.
Use code NOBLEGAMES at checkout to receive a free Noble towel with your purchase. Head to the site to learn more and take advantage of this offer while supplies last. Order minimums apply. Online only. gift with purchase differs from international customers.
And you see the advantage that you have here from Emma Lawson just sitting on the back wheel of Tia Toomey. If you're in the back of the pack, say, you know, I don't know where Laura Horvath is, but you can use these athletes on the field to do the same thing for you. You can catch up to one, use that, and, you know, to reference another Will Ferrell movie, is that you can slingshot your way around a lot of these bikes. And oftentimes you'll see this in, say, triathlons, like specifically, you know, USA triathlon events. Is like, you can't really ride in pelotons, you can't draft on athletes. But one thing I used to do back in my triathlon days is that I wouldn't necessarily draft, but I would slowly ride up behind and coast and then slowly pass athletes on the course. And I would just use athletes as little lily pads, right? Get up to them, coast for a couple seconds, and then use them to really pass myself around them and catch the next person. So you can leapfrog a lot of these cyclists your way through to maybe help you catch up to this lead pack.
Now it's Emma Lawson's turn to pull Tia Toomey. The two of them have stayed relatively even this entire 5-mile trip.
Emma Lawson looks so relaxed, not labored in her breathing. Haley Adams the same way.
Haley Adams, the gigantic lead right now over both Lawson and Toomey. And she closes out lap number 4.
And we know it's coming in events 2A and 2B. We got some heavyweight. We got some heavyweight and some very high intensity sprints. This is a much needed potential 100 points for Haley, because listen, in a balanced test, and if you're not a balanced athlete, you've got things you're great at and things you're not. And if you're great at something, you have to maximize that point potential when you have an opportunity to. So this is something that is much needed for Haley, knowing we've got some tough stuff coming up in the event just after this one.
500 total points up for grabs here on day number 1, the most points that have ever been available on the first day of competition. You mentioned the next event, one single event, but 2 different parts worth 100 points each, as Haley Adams starts her 5th and final lap. Adams looking for her first career event win here at the CrossFit Games.
For Haley now, the distance that she's put herself between Emma Lawson and Tia Toomey is enough for, in a lap, she just needs to make sure she stays on the bike. Be a little bit more wary of not the turns and the downhills, but the people around you, because usually athletes that are in the bottom of the pack are not super confident riding the bike, which means they can get a little left and right as far as their confidence. And that's really the one thing you got to be careful of. What you don't want to do is be conservative in your pace. Faster is better. Faster on the bike is more stable on the bike. Higher gear on the bike means more stability within the pedal strokes and your contact between the bike and the ground itself. Don't be cautious too much, because a little slower tends to be a little bit more dangerous as far as stability is concerned. So don't back off there, but do be careful of the athletes around you on the course.
Haley Adams with about a 12-second lead over the 2 women behind her here on this 5th and final lap. That's Tia Toomey and Emma Lawson.
Good look back for Haley. Perfect time to do it. That good little 90-degree turn, so you don't have to completely look back. It's a bit of a dangerous thing to do, is look back when you're riding the bike.
Let's go down to Mike Arsenault, who's out there at the campgrounds.
Well, we talked about Laura Horvath dominating the first portion of this workout. She is really struggling right now. The last time check I had, guys, as we moved through the campground, she was 36 seconds behind Haley Adams after leading back into the North Park by 15 to 20 seconds for the second portion of the gymnastics work. So she's really faltering here on the bike.
And a lot of that, too, may just be the speed that Haley's putting on. Because if it's 30 seconds, she was 45-plus seconds behind Haley and Tia. So that means she's at least closed the gap. But those 75 chest-to-bar pull-ups is where she really lost the time. I think her bike is still pretty decent relative to her first 5.
Haley Adams is off the bike, and Tia Toomey and Emma Lawson are right behind her. They still have to drop the bikes and sprint across the finish line. So this could come down to a foot race after all of that. Adams has ditched the bike. She's going to work her way to the finish line. Here comes Tia Toomey. Emma Lawson behind her. Haley Adams, first career event win at the CrossFit Games. Tia Toomey's going to finish second, and 17-year-old Emma Lawson will take third. Just a 3-second win for Haley Adams. And here comes Laura Horvath, followed by Alexis Raptis. And that looks like Mal O'Brien there as well. So here comes Horvath. So despite falling off the lead pace, has a fourth-place finish within her grasp, but it's going to be a race with Alexis Raptis. Raptis is just ahead of Horvath, and it's going to be Raptis in fourth, followed by Horvath in fifth. Mal O'Brien will take sixth, and Matilda Garnes is also across the finish line.
The nastiest little end wrinkle to this event is that sprint across the football field after you just sold out for 5 miles on the bike.
Here comes Danielle Brandon, looking to take 8th place in the event.
What a great start for Danielle Brandon. I'm looking at her as one of my top athletes to look at in events 2A and 2B coming up.
And now Cara Saunders, all smiles as she picks up her water bottle, waves at the crowd, and will get across the finish line. So Saunders is going to finish 10th in the event. And last year, she made it to the games, but she was just getting over COVID-19. She had to withdraw after a handful of events, so it's good to see her back at full strength. And now more athletes making their way into the stadium. We have a sprint to the finish. Emma McQuaid is in the black top. Brooke Wells and
there's
Gabby McGowan in there as well.
And one thing Cara's probably pumped about, because in 2017, where she got second by 2 points to Tia Toomey, she took 23rd in cyclocross back in 2017. So a top 10 finish. I think she'll take that to start the weekend off.
Well, Carolyn Prevost is across. Here comes Elena Caratala-Sanahuya, as we've now had 16 women finish. Sanahuya is across. 40 minutes, 56.19 seconds for her. That's Jacqueline Dahlstrom. As Ariel Lowen just came across the finish line. There's Bailey Rail. She can take her time getting across the finish line. There's really no one else with her. Bailey Rail, her second career appearance as an individual at the CrossFit Games. She took 18th last year. And she will take 20th. Sayre Kaya is across in 21st. There's Freya Moosbrugger.
Just over half the athletes in the field have completed this.
Karin Freyova edges out Moosbrugger there at the finish.
I tell you, there's not a lot of wiggle room in the back if you're trying to do a foot race at the end, trying to run through the line.
Here's Ellie Turner. Still plenty of time to go before we hit that 50-minute time cap. Haley Adams, your event winner. First career event win for her here at the CrossFit Games as an individual. 38 minutes, 23.74 seconds. And what looked like was going to be a comfortable win.
Yeah.
There were some nerve-wracking moments for her there at the end. Julia Cato is in, and here comes Amanda Barnhart.
The tough part about leading from the front, being mixed in with another cyclist and not being able to see behind you. And that's what I said, it's easier to chase than it is to run away. And man, Lawson and Toomey closed that gap so hard in the final lap.
Amanda Barnhart and Cato, and athlete at the far end of the field, pardon me.
Maybe Turi.
I think that was Turi Helgadottir. It was Turi Helgadottir. She comes in 25th. Barnhart gets 26th, and Cato will take 27th.
Paige Powers just came in.
There's Rebecca Fuselier. Danny Spiegel is across. Alex Gazan and Paige Semenza also finishing. Paige Powers, Rebecca Fuselier are over the finish line as well. So Laura Horvath and Haley Adams. Horvath on the bottom left led after the first 5-mile bike ride, but it was Laura Horvath and Tia Toomey and Emma Lawson as well, who made up a ton of ground on those 75 chest to bar pull-ups. Then Haley Adams hung on for the win.
And that's really where the separation came, Sean. It was those chest to bar pull-ups, because Laura made up 15 to 20 seconds on the bike. So Laura still had a great second bike, but she was so far behind after those 75 chest to bar pull-ups, she just couldn't close that gap.
There's Solik Sigurdardottir.
So many rookies, especially in this women's field, Sean. We looked at the lineup and just all the R's down the list. A lot of athletes getting quite a wide-eyed awakening to the first event of these 2022 Noble CrossFit Games.
Elisa Fuliano finishing up. Haley Adams, Tia Toomey, Danielle Brandon, and Mal O'Brien, all on your screen right now. All expected to be in contention for a podium spot, as is Laura Horvath. Alexis Raptis, really impressive finish for her. 2 rookies inside the top 4. Emma Lawson finishing 3rd. Raptis was 4th in this event.
The thing about Danielle Brandon, an 8th place finish. Long aerobic tests for her haven't always been her best finishing places, but with Danielle Brandon's track background and her strength overhead, an 8th place finish in a long aerobic test like this, I think, is huge for Danielle Brandon. She's one of those athletes is a bit of a wild card as far as podium potential and, obviously top 10 talent. But getting 8th place finishes in events where she's traditionally not as good, I think, is one of those things we need to keep our eye on as we look forward to the rest of the weekend.
Here's Victoria Campos.
Campbell making her way. Victoria Campbell making her way.
Less than 3.5 to go before we hit the 50-minute time cap. And we have 2 athletes left to finish after Campos is across the finish line. It's Sung Young Choi and Michelle Marin, who are still out on the course. And here comes Marin.
Sean, what I love about this time cap, it's long enough that everybody has an opportunity to finish this. And what I mean by that is everybody should experience the full force of this event, because sometimes you'll see time caps that are a little bit longer in events that may be tougher, where the volume is the really big factor in the event. 10 miles of biking, 75 toes to bar and chest to bar pull-ups respectively. And so that every athlete has to go through this. Whereas a tight time cap, they may be like, all right, I don't have to finish the bike. That means they get to take a break. Yes, they're going to get last either way. But with a time cap, that basically gives them enough window to experience all of this physically, I think is important. Later, you know, we have always seen time caps throughout the years where the time cap almost dictates the intensity of the event. This one is quite the opposite.
Choi and Kohlenbrander are still out on the course. Choi's getting ready to finish up. Kohlenbrander is behind her. You can see her at the top of your screen. So less than 2 minutes to go.
Kohlenbrander is one of those athletes we're looking at as far as, you know, she has one of the top-end strengths in the field. And depending on your balance as an athlete, there are some sacrifices to that specificity as far as your talents are concerned. So if you are a, you know, top-tier strength athlete, sometimes there's a cost to that as far as balance in your fitness.
Sung Choi taking a bit of a spill there, trying to get her bike sorted.
And the thing there, she was holding the middle frame of the bike. If you're going to put one hand on, it's really actually the bike seat that you want to have your hand on. If you're going to have your hand near the handlebars, just grab the handlebars themselves.
Finished 34th last year at the Games, making her second consecutive appearance here. Qualified out of the Far East Throwdown. And that leaves Christine Kohlenbrander with 45 seconds to go before we close out this event. And Kohlenbrander will be the final woman to cross the finish line as we close out the opening event at the 2022 Noble CrossFit Games for the women. 4 total events today, 500 points up for grabs, and Haley Adams grabs the first 100 with her first ever event win at the Games. And as you mentioned, Chase, this one came down to what happened on the pull-up.
It did, and you know, Laura Horvath had a great first 75 toes to bar, which got her out in front, and had a wonderful first 5 miles on the bike. In fact, she had one of the fastest first 5 mile splits on the bike itself, but it was the chest to bar pull-ups where she lost nearly a minute to Tia Toomey and Haley Adams. And then when Haley Adams got on the course, she extended her lead for about 4 laps, 4.99 laps, and then at the very end, Tia Toomey and Emma Lawson made up a substantial amount of ground. It came down to a foot race towards the end, and this is what you want to see. You want to try to get on the podium for the first time, you're going to have to take some wins on your way to the top.
Let's send it down to Nikki Brazier with Haley Adams.